Thank you. Good morning, Sergeant Major, Miss Hollis class. I'm Master Sergeant Franklin, and for approximately the next 3 to 5 minutes, I will give you an unclassified informational brief on Stand 7, Colonel Slocum's Dilemma. First, let me orient you to not only the map, but also our physical location. On the map, Colonel Slocum's house stood right here. It would be directly behind me to the east of us. The attack came from this line right here, from the southwest, which is over in this direction right here. And the barracks in the Camp Furlong was to the south, in this area right here. Tactically, the unavailability of officer quarters proved to be quite a dilemma for the officers. On the Camp Furlong, there was one set of officer quarters. Those quarters were identified for the single officers. All the married officers and any other soldiers who needed quarters had to stay out in the town itself. Captain Smeisner quarters here, Lieutenant McCain, and also there was a Sergeant Yevergelt that also had quarters out on the town. So that proved to be tactically a dilemma for all the officers. As you heard in the earlier briefs, officers led their troops at the time. NCOs gathered the troop and prepared them, and they waited on the instructions of the officers. So this was the dilemma. The ballistas came again from the southwest. They came in a rowdy with a lot of commotion. You heard in the earlier brief, the ballistas, Pancho Villa and the Villistas had farmers, bandits, as well as trained professional soldiers. So when they came into town, it was quite a rowdy incident, and automatically as the officers that lived in town, as they heard it, they knew exactly what it was. First up is Colonel Slocum. His dilemma was, he was the 13th Cav commander. He needed to be over here to lead his men, yet he had his family behind us in the quarters, and his dilemma was to lead his men or to secure his family who was in immediate peril. He chose to secure his family. He led them out into the sagebrush and hid in the sagebrush, and he later joined his men in the battle. You heard earlier at Stand 5, the only officers that were available during the attack was the one officer that was there at that time. Next, I want to talk about Captain Smeisner. Now, he was closest to the battle as they came in. He heard the battle. He spoke a little English. He spoke a little Spanish. And when he heard the Mexicans, what they were saying, he knew that they were going to attack. They were at his door. He escaped out the window and in the sagebrush with his wife and 2 children. And he remained there to the morning until he was rescued. Next up was Lieutenant McCain. Lieutenant McCain was out in the southwest area over here, right here on the map, just beyond the railroad. He had an assistant with him and his family. He wanted to secure his family as well. He headed across the railroad track. He headed in a reserve position that Pancho Villa had settled in, and unknowingly he headed in that direction. He ran into a Villista. He shot the Villista was shot with birdshot. It temporarily halted him. They were able to take the butt of a pistol and bash the Villista's head in. His family witnessed that event, so it was pretty traumatic. And lastly, in camp was Sergeant Yevergelt. He was a NCO that had a family that lived out in town. His immediate reaction was to go secure his family and bring the family into camp, which he attempted to do. In this attempt, as he attempted to do that, he was shot down in the middle of the road in that approximate location over there. His family saw it. They came, they stayed beside the body, and they stayed there until the battle was over. Them remaining there probably protected them and saved their lives. When you look at we look at the analysis of this battle. Had Billington been available for those officers wouldn't have been in that. They wouldn't have had that dilemma. Do I take care of my family, or do I go lead my troops? Camp Furlong was set up as a temporary post. There were some temporary quarters. There were some quarters being built over on the other side of the headquarters there, which never were occupied. But had they had those bulletins in place, a lot of the dilemma would not have happened. When I think about the role of the NCO, when I think about the NCO creed, the warrior ethos, and the Army values, the one thing that stands out is personal courage of Sergeant Nievigel. Again, he was in camp. He knew his family was in peril, and he elected to go and secure his family, as did all the officers and all those that had that dilemma. You know, again, as we think about situations in areas such as Korea, Western Europe, we face that situation today. Soldiers and their families are out there. Is a soldier going to be available to you if he's worried about his family? If he's faced with the same type of dilemma as Colonel Slocum and his men were faced with that particular day? It's something that we've gotten a little bit better on, but still today there exists. In Korea, for instance, we have NEO operations, non-combatant evacuation order. We have somebody that's in charge of evacuating family members should something like that happen. But again, it still poses a dilemma, because if my family's in peril, I'm going to be worried about my family more than my mission, more than likely. That concludes my brief. I'm subject to your questions. Yes?
Now, given that same dilemma today, how would you react?
The question was, given that same dilemma today, how would I react? Honestly, I would react the same way the other Colonel Slocum and his men reacted that particular day. I would secure my family that's in immediate peril, and then I would attempt to rejoin the mission. Again, like I said earlier in the brief, we've gotten a little bit better. We have what's called NEO, non-combatant evacuation order, that's set aside to assist soldiers and their families in times of peril such as that. If there's no further questions, I'll be followed by stand 8.